Hi, I'm Mark Kime, founder of Disaster Doc. I help experts and everyday people around the world to understand disasters so they can better protect themselves, their families, and their businesses. So I want to share with you a new opportunity that we have now looking at this new approach that applies to the culture of prevention. So there's this new global paradigm that's occurring around the world that doesn't wait for people to become victims. Instead, it empowers people to protect themselves, their families, and their livelihood. So let me share with you why I've committed my life to this principle of reducing the risk before the disaster happens. I actually became interested in disasters relatively abruptly at 3:16 p.m. on May 29, 1982. And that's when I lost my home to a killer tornado in the Midwestern United States. You know, as growing up as a boy, my family didn't have much money, but one of the things we did have is money for books. My mom always found that money. And she bought me a book on tornadoes when I was 7 years old, and I read about tornadoes and the history of these events and where they occur and how they travel and the speeds and how big they are and so on. And little did my mom know that this children's book, costing only a few dollars, would actually someday save my life. So let's fast forward 15 years later, and here I am. I'm trying to get into pre-med, and I'm studying in school and so on. And then there was a holiday, a Memorial Day weekend, which was this date of May 29th. And I heard a siren at that period of time and didn't exactly know what the siren was. And then lo and behold, I looked out across the horizon and I could see this was actually a tornado. And I knew, this was the tornado that I'd read about when I was a little boy. And so some of the ideas that I had, one of the things that came to mind first was from this book. I had learned that, I pull the kitchen table into the center of the house because the book had said, if you don't have a basement, get under heavy furniture. And so my wife got underneath there and I ran back outside to look at my neighbors because I knew my neighbors had a basement. And I went and knocked on my neighbor's door and no one was home. It was a wonderful, beautiful holiday, great weather, and so of course they were out enjoying the day. And it was then that I saw this tornado starting to come in much closer to my neighborhood. It was within about 8 or 10 blocks away. And it was this great, massive, great big huge thing swinging around, and it hit this brick schoolhouse, this 3-story brick schoolhouse. And I watched that gray, massive tornado turn completely into this red brick color as the bricks went up high in the sky and then rained back down again on both sides. And it was then that I realized, the center of my house, this wooden structure, just wouldn't survive. And so I ran back in the house and I grabbed my wife and I planned to be able to get out of the way of that tornado. Now, how did I know to do that? Once again, that children's book that I had read when I was a little boy had told me that, tornadoes move from west to east and they don't turn and go north and they don't backtrack. It also told me the average speed that these tornadoes move, which was relatively slow in comparison. And I had seen this tornado as I was moving across in the street as well, and I could tell that it was moving slowly, that I still had time to make yet another decision that would save our lives. So I went out and I got my wife and we got in the car and we got out of the way of this tornado and we drove straight north, and the tornado went through my neighborhood. And I watched as this thing went through the city, and just knowing that it was causing this tremendous amount of disruption and destruction. It was then, that I learned these 3 important lessons about that I'll carry with me about disasters for the rest of my life, and that would really challenge me to make a difference and to understand that small things do make a difference in people's lives like this. And the first lesson that I learned is the importance of family. There was my brother. We had just lost our mother and our father just a few years ago prior to that. And so it was just he and I left in the family, with my wife. And so the importance of family was really came through to me. And then also, too, I realized, number 2, you really have nothing without your health. That if you lose that, you're injured and ill and so on, that we were all healthy. So we had survived and we were healthy and we had our family. And then the third thing that I remember was a weekly reader saved my life. A little inexpensive children's book was really what had made the difference in my life and my wife's life. And literally, I wouldn't be here speaking to you today if it weren't for that little simple book. So I learned that important secret that in times like these, it's up to you. It's up to your family and it's up to your community to step up and be the real heroes, the real superheroes. And you have to learn to act before the event. You have to learn what to do, what to say, what to think, how to behave before that disaster ever happens, before you ever face those things. And that's why we're here. We want to prevent, we want to protect, we want to prepare you for disasters so that you won't be a victim, nor your family, nor your community. So I want to challenge you. I want you to join this movement to prevent disaster-related injuries and deaths. We can help people all over the world and together reduce the risk of disasters before it happens, before it's too little and too late.